I'm Marcus Thompson, 34, a construction foreman from Denver who never planned on raising my 8-year-old daughter Lily alone. When her mother walked out 2 years ago, the whispers started immediately, neighbors, teachers, even my own family, questioning whether a single dad could handle a little girl's needs. She needs a woman's touch, they'd say, shaking their heads with barely concealed pity. Last Tuesday, those same people fell silent when my boss called me into his office. I expected another lecture about work-life balance, maybe even a warning about my performance. Instead, he stood up, smiled, and said something that changed everything. Marcus, I'm recommending you for Father of the Year through the Denver Construction Association. The way you've balanced this job and raised that remarkable daughter of yours, it's inspiring. But what happened next would prove that sometimes the people who doubt you the most are the ones who need your strength when their own world crumbles. 2 years ago, I never imagined I'd be sitting in my lawyer's office, staring at custody papers that would change everything. Sarah's signature was already dried on the documents. Her decision final. She wanted out of our marriage, out of Denver, out of being a mother to our 6-year-old daughter. She's young. Marcus, just, my attorney had said, sliding the papers across his mahogany desk. But I wasn't thinking about Lily's age. I was thinking about how I'd explain to a little girl why Mommy wasn't coming home anymore. The first few weeks were brutal. Lily would wake up asking for her mother, and I'd fumble through explanations that never felt adequate. Mommy went to live somewhere else, sweetheart. But Daddy's here, and I'm not going anywhere. I remember the first time I tried to do her hair for school. My rough, calloused hands, built for handling steel beams and concrete, struggled with tiny rubber bands and bobby pins. Lily sat patiently on the bathroom counter, watching me in the mirror as I attempted what Sarah had made look effortless. It's okay, Daddy, she'd said, her small hand patting my arm. I like when you do it. But the outside world wasn't as forgiving. The looks started immediately. At the grocery store, when I'd navigate the aisles with Lily helping me pick out her favorite cereal. At parent-teacher conferences where I'd sit alone among couples, taking notes on my phone while other mothers whispered behind their hands. Mrs. Patterson, Lily's first-grade teacher, had been kind but concerned. Is there a female figure in Lily's life? An aunt, perhaps. Girls her age really benefit from feminine guidance. I'd smiled tightly and assured her that Lily and I were doing just fine. Thank you very much. But deep down, her words echoed the doubt that had been growing in my chest. Was I enough? Could a man who spent his days on construction sites really provide everything a little girl needed? The turning point came during Lily's first school play. I'd rushed from the job site, still in my work clothes, dirt under my fingernails. I was the only father there without a spouse, the only parent who looked like he'd rather be anywhere else. But when Lily spotted me in the audience, her face lit up with pure joy. That's my daddy, she'd whispered loudly to her classmate, pointing at me with unbridled pride. In that moment, I realized something crucial. The doubt wasn't coming from Lily. It was coming from everyone else somewhere along the way. I'd started believing them, but I wasn't going to let other people's expectations define our story. Lily needed me to be confident, to be present, to be the father she deserved, and I was determined to prove that a single dad could raise a daughter just fine, even if it meant doing it completely alone. The morning routine became our sacred ritual. Every weekday at 6:30 a.m., I'd wake Lily with gentle kisses on her forehead, the same way my own father had woken me decades ago. We'd stumble to the kitchen together, her hair a beautiful mess, my own still damp from the world's quickest shower. Pancakes or cereal, princess? I'd ask, though I already knew the answer. Lily was a creature of habit, just like her old man. Cereal, but can you make the milk exactly right? She'd respond, climbing onto her booster seat at our small kitchen table. The milk had to be cold but not too cold, poured so it didn't make the cereal soggy immediately. These little details mattered to her, and they'd started mattering to me too. I'd watch her eat, mentally running through the day's scheduled at school, 10 hours on the construction site, pick up at after-school care, dinner, homework, bath time, bedtime story. The hardest part wasn't the logistics. It was the girl stuff I'd never expected to learn. YouTube became my best friend those first few months. I spent countless evenings watching tutorials on braiding hair, painting nails, and navigating the complex social dynamics of elementary school friendships. The first time I successfully created a French braid, Lily squealed with delight. Daddy, you're getting really good at this. She'd run to the bathroom mirror, turning her head side to side to admire my handiwork. You think so? I'd asked, genuinely proud of such a small accomplishment. Mommy never did braids this neat, she'd said without thinking, then immediately looked stricken. I'm sorry, Daddy, I didn't mean hey. I'd knelt down to her level. It's okay to miss Mommy. It's okay to talk about her. And it's okay to notice when Daddy does something different. These conversations became easier over time. We'd talk about Sarah during our bedtime routine, Lily sharing memories while I brushed her teeth or helped her into pajamas. I learned to navigate these discussions without bitterness, focusing on the positive memories while gently redirecting when Lily asked questions I couldn't answer. The construction job that had once felt like just a paycheck became my lifeline. Tom Morrison, my supervisor, had 3 daughters of his own. He'd started cutting me slack when I needed to leave early for school events or when Lily got sick. More importantly, he'd started sharing wisdom. Girls need their dads to be present, he'd told me during a lunch break, unwrapping a sandwich his wife had packed. My oldest is 15 now, and you know what she remembers? Not the expensive gifts or the perfect birthday parties. She remembers that I showed up. Every recital, every soccer game, every time she needed me, I'd taken those words to heart. When Lily's class performed their winter concert, I was there in the front row, still in my work clothes, but with a clean face and combed hair. When she needed help with a science project about butterflies, we'd spent an entire Saturday building a chrysalis model out of cardboard and paint. The report card that arrived in November was our first real validation. Straight A's, with a note from Mrs. Patterson that made my chest swell with pride. Lily is thriving in all areas. Her confidence and academic performance reflect a stable, loving home environment. I'd read those words 3 times before showing them to Lily. She'd hug the paper to her chest like it was treasure. Are you proud of me, Daddy? I'm always proud of you, sweetheart. But more importantly, are you proud of yourself? Her smile had been radiant. Yes, and I'm proud of you too. Those quiet moments of connection became the foundation of everything we were building together. Not the grand gestures or the perfect parenting moments, but the daily choice to show up, to listen, to try. We were creating our own version of normal, one small success at a time. The first PTA meeting I attended was like walking into a foreign country where I didn't speak the language. The Roosevelt Elementary cafeteria buzzed with the energy of 30-something mothers discussing fundraisers, class parties, and volunteer opportunities. I stood in the doorway, my work boots squeaking against the polished floor, feeling like an intruder in their carefully orchestrated world. Are you here for the maintenance discussion? Asked a woman with perfectly styled blonde hair and yoga pants that probably cost more than my monthly grocery budget. No, I'm Marcus Thompson, Lily's father. Her expression shifted from polite curiosity to barely concealed surprise. Oh well. The father's usually most dads don't attend these meetings. I found a seat in the back, my large frame awkward in the tiny plastic chair designed for children. The agenda covered upcoming events, volunteer needs, and classroom concerns. When they asked for volunteers for the spring carnival, several hands shot up immediately. I raised mine too, slowly, uncertain. And what would you like to help with, Mr. Thompson? Asked the PTA president, checking her clipboard. Whatever you need. I can set up tables, handle logistics, supervise games well. We usually have the mothers handle the face painting and craft stations, she interrupted gently. Perhaps you could help with parking or setup? The message was clear. Stick to what men do. Don't venture into the nurturing spaces where your daughter actually wanted to play. After the meeting, I overheard a conversation near the exit that made my stomach clench. It's just so sad, whispered a mother I recognized from school pickup. That little girl needs female guidance. A father can't possibly understand what she's going through. I heard her mother left them. Another voice added, no wonder she seems so different. The word stung because I'd started noticing it too. Lily's backpack was sometimes messier than other kids. Her hair wasn't always perfectly styled. Her clothes were practical rather than fashionable. To me, she was perfect. To them, she was evidence of my inadequacy. The anonymous note appeared in my mailbox 3 days later. Plain white paper, computer-printed text. Your daughter would benefit from spending time with a female role model. There are resources available if you need help. I stared at those words until they blurred. Someone had been watching us, judging us, and decided that my best wasn't good enough. They'd typed out their disapproval and slipped it into my mailbox. Like a coward. That evening, I watched Lily more carefully during dinner. She was telling me about her day, animated and happy, completely unaware of the scrutiny we were under. When she asked me to help her pick out clothes for the next day, I found myself second-guessing every choice. Is this dress too wrinkled? Should I iron it? Daddy, it's fine, she laughed. I like it because it's twirly. But I'd ironed it anyway, my hands shaking slightly as I pressed the fabric smooth. I'd started seeing our life through their eyes, and I didn't like what I found. The breaking point came during a playdate that Friday. Lily had been invited to Emma Carter's house, and I'd driven her over after work. Mrs. Carter greeted me at the door with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. Marcus, hi. The girls are upstairs playing dress-up. I was just thinking maybe Lily could stay for dinner. We could do some girl talk, paint nails, that sort of thing. That's kind of you, but we have our own dinner plans. Oh. But it would be so good for her. Girls need that feminine energy, you know? Someone who understands the challenges she's facing. I'd felt my jaw tighten. What challenges are those? Well, you know, growing up without a mother figure, it's just different. For girls, they need someone who can guide them through the emotional aspects of development. I'd picked up Lily immediately, making polite excuses while my anger simmered. In the car, Lily had been quiet, sensing the tension. Daddy, did I do something wrong? No, sweetheart. You didn't do anything wrong, not ever, but the damage was done. The whispers had gotten louder, and they were starting to affect how I saw myself as a father. For the first time since Sarah left, I began to wonder if maybe, just maybe, They were right. Jennifer arrived on a Saturday morning without warning, her silver BMW, pulling into my driveway like a judgment call made manifest. Through the window, I watched her check her appearance in the rearview mirror, smoothing her auburn hair and adjusting her designer jacket. My older sister had always been the successful one, the one who did everything right, and she never let anyone forget it. Uncle Marcus Lily bounded toward the door, excited to see her 8-year-old cousin Tyler climbing out of the back seat. At least the kids would be happy. "Hey, stranger," Jennifer said, giving me a hug that felt more like a performance than genuine affection. "Thought we'd drop by and see how you two are managing." The word managing hit like a small slap. Not thriving, not doing well managing. As if our entire existence was an exercise in barely keeping our heads above water. "We're doing great, actually," I replied, stepping back to let them in. Lily's been excited about showing Tyler her room. The kids ran upstairs immediately, their laughter echoing through the house. Jennifer walked through my living room like a home inspector, her eyes cataloging every imperfection. The breakfast dishes I hadn't gotten to yet. The laundry basket, sitting by the couch, the toy box that had exploded its contents across the carpet. "Marcus, we need to talk," she said, settling onto my couch with the authority of someone about to deliver an intervention. "About what?" "About Lily. About this situation you're in." She gestured around the room like it was evidence of some great failing. "I've been talking to Mom, and we're concerned." I felt my defenses rising. Concerned about what, exactly? "Look, I know you're trying your best, but raising a daughter alone, it's not natural, Marcus. Girls need female guidance. They need someone who understands their emotional needs, their development, their womanly concerns. Womanly concerns. She's 8, Jennifer. But she won't always be 8. What happens when she starts asking questions about her body? About boys? About periods and brass and all the things that mothers usually handle? I've been dreading this conversation, but not for my sister. I'll figure it out. We'll figure it out together." Jennifer leaned forward, her expression softening with what she probably thought was compassion. "Marcus, honey, you can't figure out what you've never experienced. And it's not fair to Lily to let her struggle through these things without proper guidance." "Proper guidance? What the hell does that mean?" "It means maybe she should spend more time with me, maybe some weekends, or even no." The word came out sharper than I intended. "Absolutely not. Just hear me out. Tyler loves having her around, and I could teach her things, girl things. I could take her shopping for clothes that actually fit, help her with her hair, talk to her about emotions and relationships. You want to take my daughter away from me because you think I'm not good enough. I want to help you both. Can't you see that this arrangement isn't working? Look at this place. Marcus, look at yourself. You're exhausted, you're overwhelmed, and Lily is paying the price." The accusation hung in the air between us. I thought about the anonymous note, the whispers at school, the judgment in Mrs. Carter's eyes. Was I so blind that I couldn't see what everyone else saw clearly? "What price?" I asked quietly. She single quotes different, more reserved than she used to be. "And she's so dependent on you, Marcus. It's not healthy. Children need multiple adult figures in their lives. She has multiple adult figures. She has teachers, coaches, friends, parents. Male figures don't count for everything. She needs a woman who can nurture her in ways that you simply can't." I stared at my sister, this woman who had always been the golden child, the one who married well and lived in the suburbs and had the perfect nuclear family. She'd never been alone, never been doubted, never had to prove her worth as a parent. "You know what, Jennifer? You're right. I am exhausted. I am overwhelmed. And maybe I don't know everything about raising a daughter. But I know Lily. I know what makes her laugh, what scares her, what she dreams about. I know how to braid her hair and help with her homework and make her feel safe when she has nightmares. I know how to be her father. But is that enough?" The question hit me like a physical blow. It was the same question I'd been asking myself for 2 years. The same doubt that crept in during those quiet moments when I wondered if I was failing the most important person in my life. Before I could answer, we heard the kids thundering down the stairs. Lily appeared in the doorway, her face flushed with excitement. "Daddy, can Tyler stay for dinner, please? We're building a fort and we're not done yet." I looked at my daughter, truly looked at her. She was happy, confident, secure. She ran to me for permission, not to Jennifer. She called me daddy with absolute trust and love. "Of course he can stay," I said, lifting her into a hug. "But you'll have to help me cook." "I can cook too," Tyler chimed in. "Then we'll all cook together," I decided. Jennifer watched this exchange with something that looked like surprise, as if she'd expected to find a broken child instead of a thriving one. Maybe I wasn't perfect. Maybe I didn't have all the answers. But I had something that couldn't be taught or transferred. I had an unbreakable bond with my daughter, built on 2 years of showing up, day after day, no matter what anyone else thought. And maybe, just maybe, that was enough. Monday morning couldn't come fast enough. After Jennifer's visit, I needed the familiar rhythm of the construction site, the straightforward problems that could be solved with skill and hard work. At Morrison Construction, nobody questioned whether I could handle a steel beam or read a blueprint. My worth was measured in completed projects and satisfied clients, not in my ability to navigate the complex social dynamics of parenthood. The Denver Civic Center renovation project had been our crew's focus for 6 months. It was the kind of job that demanded precision, restoring a 1920s building while adding modern safety features and accessibility upgrades. Tom Morrison had put me in charge of the structural modifications, a responsibility that both challenged and grounded me. "Morning, Marcus," called out Jake Rodriguez, our lead electrician, as I pulled up to the job site, ready for another day in paradise. I managed a smile, grateful for the easy camaraderie. These men didn't care about my parenting choices or whether Lily's backpack was organized. They cared about whether I could do my job well and safely. Morning briefing focused on the day's priorities: installing support beams in the main hall, coordinating with the plumbing crew, and ensuring the electrical work stayed on schedule. I lost myself in the familiar language of construction load calculations, building codes, timeline management. For 8 hours, I could be just Marcus the foreman, not Marcus the questionable single father. "Thompson, got a minute?" Tom's voice cut through my concentration around noon. I followed him to the trailer that served as our temporary office, wondering if I'd missed something in the morning rush. "Everything okay?" I asked, settling into the metal folding chair across from his desk. Tom leaned back, studying me with the same intensity he brought to project planning. "You tell me. You've been solid as always, but something's eating at you." "Family stuff." I hesitated. Tom had always been fair with me, cutting me slack when I needed to handle Lily's emergencies, never making me feel guilty for having responsibilities beyond the job site. But admitting weakness felt dangerous, especially now. "My sister thinks I'm failing Lily," I said finally. "She thinks a single dad can't raise a daughter properly." Tom snorted, a sound of pure disgust. "That's bullshit, and you know it. I've watched you handle everything from sick kids to school conferences without missing a beat. Half the married guys on this crew can't manage that, but maybe she has a point. Maybe Lily needs things I can't give her. Let me tell you something about my oldest daughter, Kate," Tom said, pulling out his wallet to show me a photo of a confident-looking teenager in a soccer uniform. "Her mother wanted to put her in ballet, teach her to be a proper lady, but Kate wanted to play sports. Get dirty, compete. You know who supported that? Me. You know who fought for her to join the boys' wrestling team when there wasn't a girls' team? Me." He put the photo away, his expression serious. "Being a good parent isn't about being male or female. It's about showing up, paying attention, and loving your kid enough to let them be who they are. From what I can see, you're doing all three." The afternoon flew by in a blur of productive work. I coordinated with the electrical crew, supervised the installation of 2 major support beams, and solved the design problem that had been puzzling us for weeks. By quitting time, I felt like myself again, competent, capable, valued. "Marcus." Lily's voice rang out as I pulled into the pickup line at her after-school program. She bounded toward the truck, her backpack bouncing behind her. Her face lit up with the pure joy of seeing me. "How was your day, princess?" "Amazing. We learned about fractions, and I helped Tommy with his math." And Mrs. Garcia said, "I'm really good at explaining things. How was your day, Daddy?" As I listened to her chatter about her day, the friends she'd played with, the book she was reading, the art project she wanted to show, I realized something important. This was what mattered. Not the whispers of strangers or the doubts of family members, but this daily connection with my daughter, this evidence that she was thriving under my care. "Daddy, are you okay? You look happy but also sad." I glanced at her in the rearview mirror, amazed as always by her perceptiveness. "I'm just thinking about how lucky I am to be your dad." "I'm lucky too," she said matter-of-factly. "Tommy's dad misses all his games because of work, but you never miss anything important." She was right. I'd never missed a school performance, a parent-teacher conference, or a moment when she needed me. I'd built my life around being present for her, and it showed in her confidence, her happiness, her unshakable trust in me. The construction site had reminded me of something I'd forgotten. I was good at my job, respected by my peers, trusted, with important responsibilities. Those same qualities that made me a good foreman: reliability, problem-solving. Dedication made me a good father too. Maybe I didn't know everything about raising a daughter, but I was learning every day. Maybe that willingness to learn, to grow, to put her needs first, was exactly what she needed from me. The call came at 2:15 p.m. on a Wednesday, interrupting my review of the electrical schematics for the Civic Center project. Roosevelt Elementary's number flashed on my phone screen, and my stomach immediately dropped. Calls from school were never good news. "Mr. Thompson, this is Principal Martinez. I need you to come in immediately to discuss an incident involving Lily." The 20-minute drive to school felt like an hour. My mind raced through possibilities. Was she hurt? Had she been in an accident? I burst through the main office doors, still wearing my hard hat and safety vest, probably looking like I'd come straight from a bar fight. "Mr. Thompson." Principal Martinez appeared from her office, a short woman with kind eyes and the weary expression of someone who'd spent decades managing children and their parents. "Thank you for coming so quickly. She led me down the familiar hallway to her office, where I found Lily sitting in one of the chairs facing the principal's desk. Her clothes were dirty, her hair disheveled, and there was a small scrape on her elbow. But she sat up straight when she saw me, her chin lifted with defiance rather than shame. "Daddy." She started to jump up, but Principal Martinez gestured for her to stay seated. "What happened?" I asked, taking the chair next to my daughter. "There was an altercation on the playground during lunch recess," Principal Martinez began, consulting her notes. "Lily was involved in a physical confrontation with three other students. I looked at Lily, who was staring at her hands. "Sweetheart, what happened?" "They were being mean," she said quietly. "Really mean." Principal Martinez cleared her throat. "According to witnesses, Brandon Mitchell, Kevin Torres, and Emma Richardson were taunting Lily about her family situation. The name-calling escalated, and when Lily asked them to stop, they continued. That's when Lily responded physically. She pushed all three of them." I asked, trying to picture my gentle daughter in a playground brawl. "Actually," Principal Martinez said, and I caught something that might have been admiration in her voice. "She stood her ground quite effectively. Brandon ended up with a bloody nose, Kevin has a scraped knee, and Emma's pride was definitely bruised." I stared at my 8-year-old daughter, this fierce little person who'd apparently taken on 3 classmates single-handedly. "Lily, tell me exactly what they said to you." She looked up at me, her eyes bright with unshed tears. "They said I was weird because I don't have a mommy. They said you don't know how to take care of girls, and that's why I'm different. Brandon said his mom told him that single dads can't raise daughters right, and that I'm going to grow up wrong." The anger that rose in my chest was swift and hot. 8-year-olds repeating the cruel judgments they'd overheard from adults. My daughter being bullied because of choices I'd never made, circumstances beyond her control. And then what happened? I told them to stop. I said, "You're the best daddy in the world and you take really good care of me." But they kept saying mean things. And Brandon said ... She hesitated, glancing at Principal Martinez. "It's okay, sweetheart. Tell me what he said." "He said that's why my mommy left. Because even she knew you weren't good enough." The silence in the office was deafening. I felt like I'd been punched in the gut, and I could only imagine how those words had affected Lily. "So you hit him?" I asked gently. I told him he was wrong and he needed to apologize. When he wouldn't, I pushed him. And then Kevin called me a name, so I pushed him to N. When Emma laughed and said I was just like my daddy, all angry and rough, I may have tackled her a little bit. Principal Martinez leaned forward. "Mr. Thompson, obviously we can't tolerate physical violence, but I have to say, the provocation was severe. These children were deliberately cruel, repeating things they clearly heard from adults." "What happens now?" I asked. "Normally this would result in a 3-day suspension. However, given the circumstances, I'm recommending a 1-day suspension for Lily, and mandatory counseling sessions for the other 3 children about bullying and appropriate behavior." I was quiet for a moment, processing everything. My daughter had been attacked with the cruelest weapons available to children. The words of judgmental adults turned into playground taunts. And she'd defended herself, defended us, with the fierce loyalty of someone who knew her worth. "Lily," I said finally, "fighting is never the right answer. You could have been hurt, or hurt someone else badly. When people say mean things, the best response is to walk away and tell an adult." She nodded, properly chastened. "However," I continued, "I'm proud of you for standing up for yourself and for our family. Those children were wrong, and they were being bullies. Sometimes life puts us in situations where we have to choose between being passive and being strong. You chose to be strong." Principal Martinez looked surprised. "Mr. Thompson, we need to be clear that violence is never the first option," I finished, "but sometimes it's the only option left when words fail and adults aren't there to help." My daughter tried to resolve this peacefully. When that didn't work, she defended herself against 3 attackers. I won't punish her for that. The principal studied me for a long moment. "You know, in 15 years of doing this job, I've seen a lot of different parenting styles. Some parents immediately blame their child, some blame everyone else. You're the first parent who's managed to acknowledge both the wrong choice and the understandable motivation behind it." "Lily's not perfect," I said, putting my arm around my daughter. "Neither am I, but we're learning together, and we're doing just fine." As we walked out of the school together, Lily slipped her hand into mine. "Daddy, are you really proud of me? Even though I got in trouble?" I stopped walking and knelt down to her level. "I'm proud of you every single day. Today, I'm proud that you stood up for yourself and for us. I'm proud that you tried to solve the problem with words first. And I'm proud that when 3 kids tried to make you feel small, you showed them how strong you really are." Her smile was radiant. "I love you, Daddy. I love you too, Princess. Now, let's go home and figure out how to handle bullies without getting suspended next time." As we drove home, I realized something had shifted. For the first time since Sarah left, I felt completely confident in my parenting choices. My daughter was strong, confident, and fiercely loyal. She knew her worth and wasn't afraid to defend it. If that was the result of my questionable single parenting, then I was doing something very right indeed. The science fair project started as a simple assignment and became something much more significant. When Lily came home with the project guidelines 3 weeks before the deadline, I expected the usual stress of trying to balance work deadlines with helping her create something educational and impressive. I want to do something about engineering, Daddy, she announced over dinner, spreading the project requirements across our kitchen table. Like what you do at work. Engineering is pretty broad, sweetheart. What kind of engineering? Her eyes lit up with excitement. Bridges. I want to build bridges and test how much weight they can hold. I smiled, remembering my own childhood fascination with construction. That's a great idea. We could build different designs and see which one is strongest. What followed were 3 weeks of the most fun I'd had since becoming a single father. Every evening after work, Lily and I would spread newspapers across the kitchen table and work on our bridge prototypes. We used popsicle sticks, wood glue, and string to construct different designs: beam bridges, truss bridges, suspension bridges. Why does this one hold more weight than that one? Lily would ask, watching as our latest creation either held strong or collapsed under the pressure of our test weights. It's all about how the force is distributed, I'd explain, showing her how the triangular supports in the truss bridge spread the weight across multiple points. See how the weight travels down through these supports instead of putting all the pressure on one spot. Her understanding grew each night. She started suggesting modifications, asking questions that pushed me to explain engineering concepts in ways an 8-year-old could grasp. I found myself remembering why I'd loved construction in the first place. The satisfaction of creating something strong and beautiful, the logic of physics made visible. The night before the science fair, we put the finishing touches on our display board. Lily had insisted on doing all the writing herself. Her careful 8-year-old handwriting, explaining the principles of structural engineering alongside photos of our various bridge designs. Do you think it's good enough, Daddy? She asked, stepping back to survey our work. I think it's perfect, I said honestly. But more importantly, what do you think? I think we make a really good team. The science fair was held in the school gymnasium on a Friday evening. Tables lined the room, each displaying a student's project, with parents and families wandering through to admire the work. I felt the familiar flutter of anxiety as we set up Lily's display, wondering if other parents would judge our project, our presentation, our appearance. But as the evening progressed, something unexpected happened. Other parents began stopping at our table, genuinely interested in Lily's bridge demonstration. She explained her findings with confidence and enthusiasm, answering questions about load distribution and structural integrity with the kind of passion that made adults smile. This is really impressive, said Dr. Patricia Wells, whose daughter was in Lily's class. Did you help her with the engineering concepts? We worked on it together, I replied, but the ideas and most of the work were hers. It shows. Sarah, come look at this bridge project, she called to her wife. This little girl built functional scale models and tested their load capacity. More parents gathered around our table. They asked Lily questions about her methodology, her conclusions, her interest in engineering. They looked at me not with judgment or pity, but with the kind of respect reserved for parents who'd clearly invested time and effort in their child's education. Mr. Thompson. Mrs. Patterson appeared at my elbow. Could I speak with you for a moment? My stomach tightened, expecting another conversation about Lily's needs or my limitations. Instead, Mrs. Patterson smiled warmly. I wanted to tell you how impressed I am with Lily's project. But more than that, I'm impressed with her confidence and her ability to explain complex concepts. She's clearly been encouraged to ask questions and think critically at home. She's always been curious. I said, yes, but curiosity isn't enough. Someone has to nurture that curiosity, answer the endless questions, provide the resources for exploration. That kind of intellectual development doesn't happen by accident. Before I could respond, the judges announced the winners. Third place went to a volcano project. Second place went to a study of local bird populations, and first place, Lily Thompson, for her structural engineering study of bridge design and load capacity. The gymnasium erupted in applause. Lily's face went through a series of expressions: surprise, joy, pride, and finally pure excitement. She ran to me, throwing her arms around my waist. We won, Daddy. We actually won. You won, I corrected her. This was your project, your hard work, your brilliant mind. As she walked up to accept her trophy, I felt a hand on my shoulder. Tom Morrison had arrived just in time to see the award ceremony. Damn, Marcus, he said quietly. That kid of yours is something special. Yeah, she is. And that apple didn't fall far from the tree. Takes a good teacher to help a kid understand engineering concepts that clearly. The drive home was filled with Lily's excited chatter about the judges' questions, the other projects she'd seen, the way Mrs. Patterson had introduced her to Dr. Wells as one of our most promising young scientists. Daddy, do you think I could really be an engineer someday? She asked as I tucked her into bed, her trophy sitting proudly on her nightstand. I think you can be anything you want to be, sweetheart. You're smart, you're curious, you work hard, and you're not afraid to ask questions. Those are the most Important qualities for any career. Will you help me with my next project too? Always, I promised. As I turned off her light, I realized that tonight had been about more than a science fair victory. It had been about validation not just for Lily, but for both of us. We'd worked together on something challenging and educational, and we'd succeeded. More importantly, other people had recognized that success, had seen the evidence of our strong partnership for the first time in months. The whispers and judgments seemed insignificant compared to the solid proof of what we'd accomplished together. My daughter was thriving academically, socially, and emotionally. She was confident, curious, and kind, and I had played a part in nurturing those qualities. Maybe I didn't have all the answers, but I was asking the right questions, and sometimes that was enough. The playground at Riverside Park was nearly empty on that Saturday morning. Just a few dedicated parents braving the crisp October air with their bundled-up children. Lily had begged to go to the park with the really tall slide, and I'd agreed, grateful for an activity that would tire her out before the afternoon rain arrived. I was pushing Lily on the swings when I noticed the woman sitting alone on a bench about 20 feet away, watching a boy who looked to be around 10 years old navigate the monkey bars with determined concentration. She had the slightly frazzled look of a parent who had been up too early, her dark hair pulled back in a messy ponytail, nursing what appeared to be her second cup of coffee. "Higher, Daddy," Lily called out, pumping her legs to gain more momentum. "You're already flying, Princess. Any higher and you'll take off completely." The woman on the bench smiled at our exchange, and I found myself smiling back the automatic. Camaraderie between parents sharing an early weekend morning at the playground. "Mom, can I try the rock wall?" the boy called out, having conquered the monkey bars. "Sure, but be careful, David, and stay where I can see you." "I'm always careful," he replied with the exaggerated patience of a child who'd heard that warning 1,000 times. Famous last words, the woman muttered, loud enough for me to hear. I laughed. They have no fear at that age, do they? None whatsoever. Sometimes I think that's a blessing, other times it gives me gray hair. She gestured to her temple with mock despair. Lily jumped off the swing at its highest point, landing with the graceful abandon that only children possess. "Daddy, can I play on the climbing structure with that boy?" "Of course. But stay where you can see me." "I know," she finished, already running toward the elaborate play structure where David was attempting the rock wall. I found myself walking over to the bench, drawn by the rare opportunity for adult conversation that didn't involve work or school obligations. "I'm Marcus," I said, settling onto the other end of the bench. "Rebecca. And that's David, who's probably about to attempt something that will take 10 years off my life. That's Lily, who will probably join him in whatever dangerous adventure he's planning." We watched our children introduce themselves with the effortless social skills that adults envied. Within minutes, they were collaborating on some elaborate game that involved climbing, jumping, and a complicated set of rules that only made sense to them. "So," Rebecca said, "let me guess. Soccer practice was canceled, and you needed to burn off some energy before lunch." "Close. I needed to burn off energy before I had to spend the afternoon cleaning the house. What about you?" "David had a sleepover last night, and his friend's parents picked everyone up early this morning. He was bouncing off the walls by 7 a.m., so here we are." There was something comfortable about the conversation, the shared understanding of single-parenting logistics that didn't need explanation. It wasn't until David scraped his knee and Rebecca automatically produced bandages, wet wipes, and a juice box from her oversized purse that I realized we might have more in common than just playground supervision. "Wow," I said, impressed by her preparedness. "That's some serious mom bag organization." 3 years of trial by fire," she replied. "You learn to carry everything after the first few emergencies." 3 years. Since the divorce was finalized, David and I have been a team ever since. The admission hung in the air between us, not heavy with drama, but simply factual. I found myself reciprocating before I could second-guess it. 2 years for us? Lily's mom left when she was 6. Rebecca nodded without the usual expressions of pity or awkward sympathy I'd grown accustomed to. "It's hard, isn't it? Not just the logistics, but the constant feeling like you're being judged for doing it alone." "Exactly. Like everyone's waiting for you to fail, or looking for evidence that your kid is somehow damaged because they don't have 2 parents. God, yes. The number of people who've told me that David needs a father figure is staggering. As if I'm somehow incapable of raising a well-adjusted human being on my own." I laughed, feeling a weight lift off my shoulders. I get the opposite. Everyone thinks I can't possibly understand a daughter's emotional needs. Apparently, single dads are missing some crucial parenting component. That's ridiculous. Look at them. Rebecca pointed toward the playground, where Lily and David were engaged in an elaborate game that involved defending a fort from imaginary invaders. "Does Lily look emotionally damaged to you?" "Not even slightly." "Does David look like he's suffering from a lack of male influence?" "He's confident, kind, and has better manners than most adults I know. I think we're doing just fine." We spent the next hour talking while our children played, sharing the kinds of stories and insights that only single parents understood. Rebecca told me about the PTA meeting where another mother suggested she join the single-parent support group as if she needed therapy rather than community. I told her about the anonymous note and Jennifer's intervention. Your sister actually said that? Rebecca asked, her eyes wide with disbelief. She meant well. She thinks she's helping. She's projecting her own insecurities. I bet she's never been alone for 5 minutes in her adult life, so she can't imagine how anyone else could manage it. The observation was so accurate it made me laugh. You might be onto something there. When the afternoon rain finally started, we gathered our children and prepared to leave. David and Lily had exchanged promises to play together again soon, and Rebecca and I found ourselves making similar commitments. The same time next Saturday, she asked, loading David into her car. If the weather holds, and if you don't mind dealing with Lily's sugar crash, after I inevitably give in and buy her ice cream. David's lactose intolerant, so we're usually dealing with the aftermath of whatever forbidden dairy product he's convinced some well-meaning adult to give him. I think we can handle a sugar crash. As we drove home, Lily chattered excitedly about her new friend and the elaborate games they'd invented, but I found myself thinking about Rebecca, about the easy conversation and shared understanding we discovered. Daddy, I really like David's mom, Lily said suddenly. She's funny, and she didn't ask me weird questions about not having a mommy. What do you mean? She just talked to me like a regular person. She asked about school and my favorite books and whether I liked climbing. She didn't act like I was different or said or anything. That evening I found myself reflecting on the afternoon. For the first time in 2 years, I'd met another single parent who didn't treat our situation like a tragedy or a problem to be solved. Rebecca saw single parenting as I was learning to see it not as a limitation, but as a different kind of family structure that worked just fine for the people living it. More importantly, Lily had made a friend whose family looked like ours, whose normal included things like playground Saturdays and single-parent logistics. She'd spent an afternoon just being a kid, without having to explain or defend her family situation. Maybe we didn't need fixing after all. Maybe we just needed to find our people, the ones who understood that families come in all shapes and sizes, and that love and commitment matter more than traditional structures. For the first time in months, I felt like we weren't navigating this journey alone. Mom arrived on a Sunday afternoon, unannounced as always, carrying a casserole dish and wearing the expression she reserved for difficult conversations. At 68, Patricia Thompson still moved through the world with the brisk efficiency of someone who'd raised 3 children mostly on her own, though she'd never acknowledged that reality out loud. Hi, Grandma Pat. Lily threw herself into my mother's arms with genuine enthusiasm. Despite the tension between Mom and me, she'd always been a devoted grandmother, never missing birthdays or school events. Hello, sweetheart. My goodness, you've grown since last week. Mom kissed the top of Lily's head, then looked at me over her granddaughter's shoulder. Marcus, we need to talk. About what? I asked, though I suspected this visit was related to Jennifer's recent concerns about my parenting. Adult things, she said meaningfully, then turned to Lily. Sweetheart, why don't you go work on that puzzle in your room? I brought you a new one. It's a picture of the Rocky Mountains. Lily squealed with delight and ran upstairs, leaving Mom and me alone in the kitchen. She set the casserole in my refrigerator with the kind of purposeful movements that suggested she was organizing her thoughts. Jennifer called me. She began without preamble. Of course she did. She's worried about you, Marcus. About Lily. She thinks maybe you're in over your head. I felt the familiar surge of defensive anger. And what do you think? Mom was quiet for a long moment, studying my face with the intensity that had always made me feel like she could see, straight through to my soul. When she finally spoke, her voice was softer than I'd expected. I think you're doing better than I did at your age. The admission caught me completely off guard. What? Sit down, son. There are things I should have told you years ago. I settled into one of the kitchen chairs, watching as my mother poured herself a cup of coffee from the pot I'd made that morning. Her hands shook slightly, a tremor I'd noticed more frequently lately, but had been too busy to really consider. Your father wasn't the man you remember, she began, settling across from me at the table. Oh, he was a good man in many ways, but he was also absent in others. The drinking started when you were about Lily's age. I stared at her, trying to reconcile this information with my memories of my father, the man who'd taught me to throw a baseball, who'd helped with homework, who'd seemed like the ideal dad until his heart attack when I was 15. He never missed work, Mom continued, and he never got violent or mean. But he checked out emotionally somewhere around your 8th birthday. Jennifer was 12, old enough to remember what he was like before. You and Kevin were younger, so you only knew the version of him that showed up physically, but was absent in every other way. Why are you telling me this now? Because I raised 3 children essentially alone, and I made mistakes that I see you refusing to make. She reached across the table and took my hand. I was so focused on maintaining the illusion of a perfect family that I forgot to actually be present for my children. Mom, you were a great mother. I was a mother who was terrified of judgment, terrified of anyone discovering that my marriage was falling apart, that my husband was struggling with addiction, that I was barely keeping our heads above water, financially and emotionally. She pulled an envelope from her purse, yellowed with age, and slid it across the table to me. I found this last week while cleaning out your father's old desk. It's a letter he wrote but never sent. Probably sometime during your freshman year of high school. With trembling fingers, I opened the envelope and unfolded the handwritten pages. My father's familiar script filled 3 sheets of notebook paper. Patricia, I know I'm failing our family. I know the kids deserve better than a father who comes home every night and disappears into a bottle. Marcus keeps trying to talk to me about his construction class, and I can barely focus long enough to respond. Jennifer's been asking for help with her college applications, and I keep putting her off. Kevin needs someone to believe in him, and instead he gets a father who's checked out. I want to be better. I want to be the man you married, the father our children deserve. But I don't know how to climb out of this hole I've dug. I'm drowning, and I'm taking all of you down with me. Maybe they'd be better off without me. Maybe you'd all be better off without me. The letter continued for 2 more pages, detailing his struggles with depression, his guilt over his emotional absence, his fear that he was damaging his children by staying but couldn't bear the thought of leaving them. I read the entire letter twice before looking up at my mother, who was watching me with tears in her eyes. He never sent it, she said quietly, but he should have. If we'd talked about it, if I'd known how much he was struggling, maybe we could have gotten him help. Why are you showing me this now? Because I see you doing what he couldn't do. You're present, Marcus. You show up for Lily in ways that your father never learned to show up for you. When she talks, you listen. When she needs something, you figure out how to provide it. When she's struggling, you don't disappear. Lean in. I folded the letter carefully, my mind reeling. Jennifer doesn't remember Dad this way. Jennifer remembers the father she had before the drinking, when she was young and he was still trying. You remember the father who was physically present, but emotionally absent. That's why she thinks traditional family structures are so important, because hers worked until it didn't. And that's why you're so determined to be fully present, because you instinctively understood what was missing. So what does this have to do with Jennifer's concerns? Mom sighed, suddenly looking every one of her 68 years. Jennifer is projecting her own fears onto your situation. She's terrified of being alone, of not having the traditional structure she thinks guarantees happiness. She can't imagine that you and Lily might actually be thriving because she couldn't imagine thriving without the framework she's always known. And you, what do you think? I think Lily is one of the most confident, articulate, well-adjusted children I've ever known. I think she adores her father and trusts him completely. I think you're giving her something precious, your full attention, your complete commitment, your unwavering presence. She reached across the table and squeezed my hand. I think you're the father I wish your father could have been, and I think Lily is incredibly lucky to have you. The words hit me with an emotional force I hadn't expected. For 2 years, I'd been operating under the assumption that I was failing my daughter, that single parenthood was inherently inadequate, that I was somehow damaging her by not being able to provide a traditional family structure. I had no idea Dad struggled like that, I said finally. Mental health wasn't something people talked about back then. He suffered in silence, and I enabled that silence because I was afraid of what people would think if they knew our marriage was falling apart. Mom's voice grew stronger. But you're not making those mistakes, Marcus. You're open with Lily about emotions. You seek help when you need it. You've built a support network of other parents and teachers who care about both of you. Jennifer doesn't see it that way. Jennifer sees what she's afraid of, seeing family structure she doesn't understand, a situation she couldn't handle herself. But that doesn't make her fears valid. We sat in comfortable silence for a few minutes, the weight of 30 years of family secrets settling between us. Finally, Mom spoke again. There's something else I need to tell you. Something I should have said 2 years ago when Sarah left. I waited, sensing that whatever came next would be equally revelatory. I was proud of you for fighting for custody. I was proud that you didn't fall apart, didn't run away, didn't disappear into whatever coping mechanism presented itself. Stepped up in a way that your father never learned to do. And I should have told you that instead of worrying about what other people would think, you were worried about what people would think. Of course I was, a single father raising a daughter. In my generation, that was unheard of. I was terrified that you'd fail, that Lily would suffer, that people would judge our entire family for this unconventional arrangement. She smiled sadly. I was so busy worrying about potential problems that I missed all the evidence that you were succeeding. Grandma, Pat, Daddy, come see my puzzle. Lily's voice called from upstairs, breaking the emotional intensity of our conversation. We're coming, sweetheart, I called back, then turned to my mother. Mom, thank you for telling me all this. It helps to understand the bigger picture. There's one more thing, she said, standing up from the table. I want you to keep that letter, not because you need to be reminded of your father's struggles, but because you need to remember that you chose a different path. You chose to be present, to be engaged, to be the parent your child needed. As we climbed the stairs to admire Lily's puzzle progress, I felt something shift in my understanding of my family's history. The pressure I'd felt to prove my adequacy, as a single father wasn't just about external judgment. It was about breaking a generational pattern of emotional absence that I'd inherited without realizing it. My father had been physically present but emotionally unavailable. I was determined to be both physically and emotionally present for Lily. The very fact that I worried about my parenting, that I questioned whether I was enough, proved that I was already succeeding where my father had failed. "Look, Daddy, I'm almost done with the mountains." Lily pointed proudly at her puzzle, which depicted a stunning sunrise over snow-capped peaks. "That's beautiful, Princess. You're really good at finding the right pieces." Grandma Pat taught me too. "Look for the colors that match, not just the shapes," Lily said, beaming at my mother. "Smart strategy," I agreed, watching the easy affection between my daughter and her grandmother. Later that evening, after Mom had left and Lily was asleep, I sat in my living room holding my father's letter. The pain in his words was palpable, but so was his love for his family and his desire to be better. He'd been fighting demons I was only now beginning to understand. I thought about the choices I'd made since becoming a single father, the decision to prioritize Lily's needs over social expectations, the commitment to being present for every important moment, the willingness to admit when I didn't know something, and learn from more experienced parents like Rebecca. For the first time since Sarah left, I felt genuinely proud of the father I'd become. Not perfect, not without struggles, but present, engaged, and completely committed to my daughter's well-being. And maybe, in the end, that was not just enough, it was exactly what she needed. Tom Morrison called me into his office on a Thursday morning, 3 weeks after the Civic Center project had wrapped up ahead of schedule and under budget. I'd been expecting this meeting project. Debriefs were standard procedure, but something in his tone suggested this conversation would cover more than just timeline analysis and budget reviews. "Close the door, Marcus," he said, gesturing to the chair across from his desk. The trailer that served as our temporary office was cramped but functional, walls covered with blueprints, safety charts, and photos from completed projects. I settled into the metal chair, noting the formal document sitting on his desk. "Everything okay?" "More than okay. The Civic Center project was a success because of your leadership. The client was impressed, the crew respected your management style, and we finished 2 weeks early." Tom leaned back in his chair, studying me with the same intensity he brought to project planning. "How do you feel about site supervision?" "I enjoy the coordination aspects, the problem-solving, working with different teams. I mean full-time site supervision. Your own projects, your own crew, your own client relationships." The words hung in the air between us. Site supervisor was the next logical step in my career, but it was also a significant increase in responsibility, stress, and time commitment. It meant being the person ultimately accountable for million-dollar projects, for worker safety, for client satisfaction. "There's an opening," Tom continued, sliding the document across his desk. "The Henderson Medical Complex, 18-month project, $12 million budget. The client specifically requested someone with your attention to detail and communication skills." I picked up the job description, scanning through the requirements and expectations. The salary increase was substantially enough to move Lily and me into a better neighborhood, to start a real college fund, to provide the kind of financial security I'd been working toward since Sarah left. "This is a big opportunity," I said, carefully. "It's the opportunity, Marcus, site supervisor at 34, with a project this size. That puts you on track for project management by 40, maybe even partial ownership someday." I thought about what this promotion would mean for our daily routine. Longer hours, weekend site visits, the constant pressure of being ultimately responsible for every aspect of a major construction project, but also better pay, career advancement, the kind of professional success that would silence any remaining doubts about my competence. "What's the timeline for a decision?" "I need an answer by Monday. The project starts in 3 weeks, and if you're not interested, I need time to find someone else." That evening, I spread the site supervisor job description across our kitchen table while Lily worked on her homework beside me. She'd developed the habit of doing her assignments in the kitchen while I reviewed work documents, both of us comfortable in the parallel companionship of shared workspace. "What's that, Daddy?" she asked, glancing up from her math worksheet. "A job opportunity. A promotion, actually." "That's good, right? Promotions are when they give you more important work because you're really good at your job." I smiled at her straightforward assessment. "Exactly, but this promotion would mean longer hours, more responsibility, and probably some weekend work." Lily set down her pencil, giving me her full attention. "Would you be happy doing the new job?" The question caught me off guard. In all my considerations about salary, career advancement, and financial security, I hadn't really thought about happiness. "I think so. I'd be in charge of building an entire medical center, a place where doctors and nurses will help sick people get better. That's pretty meaningful work." "And would we still have time for our Saturday pancakes and Sunday movie nights?" "We'd have to be more careful about our schedule, but yes, those things are important to me too." She nodded thoughtfully, then returned to her math problems. "I think you should take the promotion if it makes you happy. We're pretty good at figuring things out together." Later that night, after Lily was asleep, I called Rebecca. Our playground friendship had evolved into regular phone conversations, a rare opportunity for adult discussion with someone who understood the complexities of single parenting. A site supervisor position, she said when I explained the opportunity. That's huge, Marcus. Congratulations. I haven't decided yet. The increased responsibility is exciting, but the longer hours worry me. What specifically worries you? Missing things, school events, parent-teacher conferences, those random Tuesday afternoon moments when Lily needs to talk about something important. I've built our entire life around being available for her. Rebecca was quiet for a moment. Can I ask you something? What would you tell Lily if she had an opportunity to advance but was worried about changing her routine? I'd tell her that growth requires some risk, and that we'd figure out how to handle any challenges together. Exactly. You've spent 2 years proving that you can adapt to whatever life throws at you. Why would this be different? Because the stakes feel higher now. I finally feel like I have my footing as a father. What if taking on more professional responsibility throws off that balance? Or what if it shows Lily that her father is ambitious, successful, and capable of growing in his career while still being a devoted parent? What if it demonstrates that single parents can thrive professionally, not just survive? The conversation continued for another hour, covering the practical considerations and emotional implications of the decision. Rebecca helped me think through logistics, backup childcare plans, modified schedules, ways to maintain our important traditions while accommodating increased work demands. The next morning, I found Lily in the kitchen earlier than usual, carefully preparing breakfast for both of us. What's all this? I asked, surveying the perfectly set table, the orange juice poured into actual glasses instead of our usual plastic cups. I wanted to practice being more grown up, she said seriously. If you take the promotion, I might need to be more independent. Sometimes, I want to show you that I can handle it. The gesture was so thoughtful, so mature, that I felt a surge of pride mixed with amazement. This 8-year-old had spent the night thinking about how to support my career advancement, how to be a better partner in our family team. Sweetheart, you don't need to prove anything to me. You're already the most amazing, capable kid I know. I know that, she said with matter-of-fact confidence. But I also know that you've been taking care of me really well, and maybe now it's time for you to take care of your dreams too. As we ate breakfast together, I realized that my daughter had just given me the perspective I needed. For 2 years, I'd focused entirely on proving that I could be a good father, that I could provide everything Lily needed despite being a single parent. But in that focus, I'd perhaps limited my own growth, my own ambitions. Lily didn't need a father who sacrificed his professional potential to prove his devotion. She needed a father who showed her that it was possible to pursue excellence in multiple areas of life, that parenthood and career success weren't mutually exclusive. She needed to see that her father was capable of growth, ambition, and achievement. He was modeling the kind of life she could build for herself someday. Monday morning, I knocked on Tom's office door with my decision already made. I want the job, I said simply. Tom's grin was immediate and genuine. I was hoping you'd say that. When can you start reviewing the project plans? Whenever you need me to. Lily and I are ready for the next challenge. The call came at 11:47 p.m. on a Tuesday, jarring me from the deep sleep that only came after 14-hour days managing the Henderson Medical Complex project. My phone buzzed insistently on the nightstand, and I fumbled for it in the darkness, my first thought immediately jumping to Lily sleeping peacefully down the hall. Marcus. Jennifer's voice was thick with tears, barely recognizable. I need, ... Can you? Oh God, I don't know who else to call. I sat up, instantly alert. In 36 years of knowing my sister, I'd never heard her sound so broken, so lost. Jennifer was the one with answers, the one who had her life perfectly orchestrated, the one who dispensed advice to everyone else. Jen, what happened? Are you okay? Are the kids okay? Brad left. The words came out in a whisper. He's been having an affair for 8 months. He moved out this afternoon. He wants a divorce. I was quiet for a moment, trying to process this information. Brad and Jennifer had been married for 12 years. The picture of suburban success, their house in Cherry Hills Village, their matching luxury cars, their elaborate vacation photos on social media, it had all seemed so stable, so enviable. Where are you now at home? The kids are asleep. I don't know what to do. Marcus, I don't know how to do this alone. The irony wasn't lost on me. 3 months ago, Jennifer had been questioning my ability to raise Lily as a single parent. Now she was facing the same situation with 2 children and no experience managing a household independently. Do you want me to come over? Would you? I know it's late, and you have work tomorrow, but I can't think straight. I'll be there in 20 minutes. I checked on Lily, still sound asleep, then left a note on her nightstand explaining that I'd gone to help Aunt Jennifer and would be back before she woke up. The drive to Cherry Hills took 15 minutes through empty streets, giving me time to prepare for whatever crisis I was about to walk into. Jennifer's house looked exactly the same from the outside. Perfectly manicured lawn, designer landscaping, the kind of architectural statement that screams success and stability. But when she opened the front door, I saw the truth behind the facade. Her face was swollen from crying, her usually perfect hair disheveled, her expensive pajamas wrinkled and stained with tears. "Thank you for coming," she said, collapsing into my arms with the kind of desperate hug that people give when they're drowning. I held her while she cried. This woman who had spent our entire adult relationship convinced that she had all the answers, that her way of living was the only right way. The role reversal was startling, but more than that, it was heartbreaking. No one deserved to have their world shattered like this. "Tell me what happened," I said gently, guiding her to the living room couch. The story came out in fragments between tears, Brad's increasing distance over the past year, his new work commitments that kept him away from home, the discovery of credit card charges at restaurants and hotels that Jennifer had never been to, the confrontation that afternoon when she'd finally found evidence of his affair. "He said he's been unhappy for years," Jennifer sobbed. "He said he felt trapped, that he never wanted the suburban life, that he's been pretending to be someone he's not for our entire marriage. What about Tyler and Emma? He wants joint custody, but he also wants to explore his options before settling into a permanent living situation. He's moving in with her, the woman he's been seeing. She's 26, Marcus. 26. I felt anger rising in my chest, not just at Brad's betrayal but at his casual destruction of his children's sense of security. "What do you need right now? Tonight? I mean, I don't know. I've never been alone before. I went from my parents' house to college to marriage. I don't know how to be a single parent. I don't know how to manage the finances or fix things when they break or make decisions without having someone to discuss them with." The vulnerability in her voice was profound. This was the woman who had questioned my parenting, who had suggested that Lily would be better off in her care, who had been so certain that traditional family structures were superior in every way. "You'll learn," I said simply. "The same way I learned, one day at a time, one problem at a time." "But what if I can't? What if I mess up the kids? What if I make the wrong decisions?" I looked around their living room, the expensive furniture, the perfectly coordinated decor, the family photos that now represented a life that no longer existed. In a few months, Jennifer would probably have to sell this house, downsize, adjust to a completely different financial reality. "Jen, can I tell you something? You're going to make mistakes. You're going to have days when you feel completely overwhelmed, when you question every decision, when you wonder if you're enough for your kids. But you know what else is going to happen?" She looked at me with red-rimmed eyes, waiting. "You're going to discover that you're stronger than you ever imagined. You're going to learn that Tyler and Emma need your love and presence more than they need a perfect house or expensive clothes. You're going to realize that being a single parent isn't a failure or a compromise. It's just a different way of building a family." "How do you know that?" "Because I lived it. Because 2 years ago, I was sitting exactly where you are right now, terrified that I wasn't enough for Lily, convinced that I was going to ruin her life through my inadequacy." Jennifer was quiet for a long moment. "I said terrible things to you, about your parenting, about Lily's needs. I was so arrogant, so sure that I knew better. You were scared. You couldn't imagine a family structure that looked different from yours, so you assumed it must be inferior. But you and Lily are thriving. I can see that now. She's confident and happy and secure. She adores you. We figured it out together, just like you and your kids will figure it out together." I stayed until sunrise, helping Jennifer think through immediate practical concerns: lawyers, custody arrangements, financial planning, school notifications. As the morning light filtered through her designer curtains, she looked exhausted but slightly more grounded. "Marcus," she said as I prepared to leave, "will you help me? I know I don't deserve it after the things I said, but I don't know how to do this alone. Of course I'll help you. That's what family does." As I drove home to wake Lily for school, I reflected on how completely the tables had turned. 3 months ago, Jennifer had been the expert dispensing advice about my parenting inadequacies. Now she was the one seeking guidance, the one facing the terrifying prospect of single parenthood. But more than vindication, what I felt was compassion. I remembered the fear, the overwhelming sense of responsibility, the crushing weight of making every decision alone. I wouldn't wish that on anyone, especially not my sister, regardless of our past conflicts. When I walked into our kitchen, Lily was already awake, sitting at the table with a bowl of cereal and yesterday's homework spread in front of her. "Is Aunt Jennifer okay?" she asked without looking up from her math worksheets. "She's going through a difficult time, but she's going to be okay. How did you know I went to help her? I saw your note, and I heard you talking on the phone." She looked up at me with those perceptive 8-year-old eyes. "Are Tyler and Emma going to live with just their mom now, like I live with just you?" "Probably, at least part of the time." Lily nodded thoughtfully. "That's going to be scary for them at first, but they'll figure it out. Kids are pretty good at adapting." Her matter-of-fact wisdom amazed me. My daughter, who had been through her own family upheaval, understood something that most adults miss: that children were resilient, that love mattered more than structure, that families could be redefined and still be whole. "You know what, Princess? I think you're absolutely right." Jennifer and the kids moved into our guest room 3 weeks later, their temporary stay stretching into what was obviously going to be a longer arrangement. Our small 3-bedroom house suddenly felt cramped with 5 people, but somehow we made it work. Tyler, now 10, and Emma 6, brought their own chaos and energy, transforming our quiet routine into something that resembled controlled mayhem. "Uncle Marcus, can you help me with my science project?" Tyler asked one evening while I was reviewing construction plans at the kitchen table. His confidence had taken a hit since the divorce proceedings began, and he'd started seeking guidance for things he used to ask his father about. Of course, what's the topic? Solar energy. "I want to build a solar oven, but Mom doesn't know how the reflector panels work." I looked over at Jennifer, who was helping Emma with her reading homework while simultaneously trying to review legal documents her attorney had sent. The stress of managing everything alone was evident in the tight set of her shoulders. The way she'd started biting her nails, a habit I remembered from our childhood. "Why don't we work on it together this weekend?" I suggested. "Lily's been wanting to learn more about renewable energy anyway." "Really? That would be awesome." The weekend project became a family affair. We spread newspapers across the garage floor and constructed solar ovens using cardboard boxes, aluminum foil, black construction paper, and plastic wrap. I found myself naturally falling into the role of teacher and coordinator, explaining concepts, troubleshooting problems, and making sure everyone felt included. "Why does the black paper make it hotter?" Emma asked, carefully smoothing aluminum foil into her box. "Because black absorbs more heat from the sun," Lily explained before I could answer. "White reflects heat, but black soaks it up like a sponge." I watched my daughter take on a teaching role with her younger cousin, sharing knowledge with the kind of patience and enthusiasm that reminded me of myself at my best moments. She'd become more confident, more mature, in the weeks since her cousins had moved in. "Lily's really smart," Tyler said admiringly. "She knows almost as much about science as you do, Uncle Marcus." "She's always been curious about how things work," I replied, "and she's not afraid to ask questions when she doesn't understand something." Jennifer looked up from her own solar oven construction, catching my eye. In that moment, I saw recognition, there an understanding of something she'd missed before. Lily's confidence, her knowledge, her willingness to teach and help others, weren't accidents. They were the result of years of encouragement, of having her questions taken seriously, of being raised by someone who valued learning and curiosity. "Marcus," Jennifer said that evening after the kids were asleep, "I need to apologize to you." We were sitting on the back porch, sharing a beer and watching the sunset paint the Denver skyline in shades of orange and pink. These quiet adult conversations had become precious in our suddenly crowded household. "For what? For everything I said about your parenting, for questioning whether you could raise Lily properly, for suggesting that she needed things you couldn't provide." Jennifer turned to face me fully. "I was wrong. Completely, utterly wrong. You were scared and trying to help. No, I was projecting my own insecurities. I couldn't imagine being a single parent because I'd never had to be self-reliant. I assumed that what felt impossible to me must be impossible for everyone." I was quiet, letting her work through her thoughts. "But watching you these past few weeks, seeing how you handle everything, you make it look natural. Tyler asks you about homework, and you sit down and really listen to his questions. Emma has a nightmare, and you know exactly how to comfort her. You coordinate schedules, cook dinner, help with projects, manage your own demanding job, and somehow never seem overwhelmed." "I'm overwhelmed plenty," I said honestly. "I just don't have the luxury of falling apart." "That's exactly what I mean. You've developed this strength, this competence, that I never had to develop because I always had Brad to share the load." The irony was profound. Jennifer, who had once seen my single parenthood as a limitation, now recognized it as evidence of capabilities she was still learning to develop. "The kids trust you," she continued. "Not just Lily, but Tyler and Emma too. They come to you with problems. They seek your approval. They feel safe with you. Do you know how rare that is? They're good kids going through a tough time. They just need stability and patience. No, it's more than that. You have this way of making each of them feel heard, valued, important. When Tyler talks about his science project, you don't just listen, you engage. You ask follow-up questions. You help him think through problems. When Emma shows you her artwork, you study it like it's a masterpiece and ask her about her color, choices, and her inspiration." I realized she was describing the kind of attention I'd always wished for as a child. The engagement I'd learned to provide because I remembered what it felt like to be dismissed or half-heard. "You're learning the same skills," I pointed out. "I've watched you with Tyler and Emma. You're more present now than you were when Brad was around." Jennifer laughed, but there was sadness in it. "Because I have to be. Before, I could defer to Brad for the big decisions, rely on him for the serious conversations. Now I'm realizing how much I was missing by not being fully engaged. The kids are resilient. They're adjusting better than you probably expected. Because of you. Because you've shown them that single-parent families can work, that they don't have to be afraid of this new reality." That weekend, we established new routines that accommodated our expanded household. Family breakfast on Saturday mornings, with everyone helping to cook. Sunday afternoon activities that could include 4 kids and 2 adults. Evening homework time where I rotated between helping all 3 children with their assignments. Uncle Marcus, Emma said one evening while I was helping her practice reading, are you going to be our dad now? The question caught me off guard. No, sweetheart, you have a dad, and you'll still see him regularly. I'm your uncle, and I love you very much, but I'm not trying to replace your dad. But you do dad things, she said matter-of-factly. You help with homework and make dinner and fix things when they break. I glanced over at Jennifer, who was listening to our conversation while helping Tyler with his math. There are lots of ways to be a family, I said carefully. Right now we're all living together and taking care of each other. That makes us a family too, even if it's a different kind of family than you're used to. I like this family, Emma said, then returned to her book as if she'd settled an important philosophical question. Later that night, after everyone was asleep, I found myself thinking about Emma's observation. Without meaning to, without planning it, I had stepped into a paternal role for Tyler and Emma, not to replace their father, but to fill the gaps left by his absence. To provide the stability and attention they needed during this difficult transition. For the first time since becoming a single parent, I felt completely confident in my abilities. Not because I was perfect, not because I had all the answers, but because I was doing exactly what these children needed, showing up, paying attention, providing security and love in the midst of uncertainty. I was being the strong one, and it felt right. The Denver Construction Association's annual awards dinner was held at the Brown Palace Hotel, a venue that commanded respect and formality. I stood in front of my bedroom mirror, adjusting my tie for the third time, trying to calm the nervous energy that had been building all week. The Father of the Year award wasn't something I'd ever imagined receiving, and the recognition felt both validating and surreal. Daddy, you look really handsome, Lily announced from my doorway. She was wearing her favorite dress, navy blue with tiny white flowers, and had insisted on styling her own hair for the occasion. The result was charmingly imperfect, with a slight lopsided bow that I wouldn't have changed for anything. Thank you, Princess. You look pretty spectacular yourself. Are you nervous? A little, I admitted. It's not every day someone gives you an award for being a dad, but you're the best dad. Everyone should know that. From downstairs, I could hear the controlled chaos of Jennifer getting Tyler and Emma ready. They'd insisted on coming to support me, transforming what I'd expected to be a quiet evening into a family celebration. Uncle Marcus. Tyler appeared beside Lily, wearing his only dress shirt and a clip-on tie that was slightly crooked. Mom says we need to leave in 5 minutes or we'll be late. Then we better get moving, I said, gathering my acceptance speech. Notes from the dresser. I'd written and rewritten the speech a dozen times. Wanting to strike the right balance between gratitude and authenticity, the drive to downtown Denver was filled with chatter from the back seat. The kids speculating about the evening ahead. Jennifer sat in the passenger seat, quieter than usual but smiling more than she had in weeks. Marcus, she said as we pulled into the hotel's parking garage, I'm really proud of you, not just for winning this award, but for everything you've accomplished as a father. Thank you. That means a lot, especially coming from you. The Brown Palace ballroom was elegant in the way that only historic hotels could achieve. Crystal chandeliers, rich carpeting, round tables set with crisp white linens and gleaming silverware. About 200 people filled the space, mostly construction industry professionals and their families. Tom Morrison found us as we were locating our assigned table. Marcus, there's the man of the hour. And this must be the famous Lily I've heard so much about. It's nice to meet you, Mr. Morrison, Lily said politely, offering her hand for a shake. Thank you for giving my daddy such a good job. Tom laughed, charmed by her directness. Your daddy earned that job all by himself. He's one of the most dedicated, skilled workers I've ever supervised. As the evening progressed through dinner and various awards presentations, I found myself relaxing into the celebration. The kids were on their best behavior, engaged by the speeches and entertained by the formal atmosphere. Jennifer seemed more at ease than she'd been in months, laughing at the MC's jokes and engaging in conversation with the other parents at our table. The Father of the Year award, announced the MC as dessert was being served, recognizes a member of our construction community who exemplifies excellence in both professional achievement and parental dedication. This year's recipient has balanced the demands of site supervision with the responsibilities of single parenthood, demonstrating that commitment to family and career success are not mutually exclusive. My heart began beating faster as the moment approached. Marcus Thompson joined Morrison Construction 5 years ago as a skilled laborer and has consistently demonstrated the leadership, reliability, and problem-solving abilities that make exceptional foremen and supervisors. But it's his dedication to his 8-year-old daughter Lily that truly sets him apart. I glanced at Lily, who was sitting up straighter, pride radiating from her small frame. Colleagues report that Marcus has never missed a school event, never failed to prioritize his daughter's needs, and has somehow managed to be fully present as both a professional and a parent. His supervisor, Tom Morrison, nominated him with these words: Marcus Thompson proves every day that being a devoted father makes you a better employee, not a distracted one. His daughter is lucky to have him, and our company is lucky to have them both. The applause began before my name was called, and I felt Lily's small hand squeeze mine under the table. Marcus Thompson, this year's Father of the Year. Walking to the podium felt like moving through a dream. The applause was warm and genuine, but more meaningful were the faces I could see in the audience. Dom's proud grin, Jennifer's emotional smile, Tyler and Emma clapping enthusiastically, and Lily, who was beaming with such joy that I had to blink back tears. "Thank you," I began, my voice steadier than I'd expected. When Tom first told me about this nomination, my immediate thought was that there had been some mistake. I don't feel like I'm doing anything special, I'm just trying to be the father my daughter deserves. I found Lily in the audience and spoke directly to her. 3 years ago, when it was just you and me figuring out this parenting thing together, I was terrified that I wouldn't be enough, that I couldn't provide everything you needed, that I was somehow failing you by not being able to give you a traditional family. The ballroom was completely quiet, people leaning forward to hear every word. But what I've learned is that being a good parent isn't about having the perfect family structure or knowing all the answers. It's about showing up every day, paying attention to your child's needs, and being willing to learn and grow alongside them. I paused, looking out at the audience filled with fellow parents, many of whom had probably faced their own challenges and doubts. Lily has taught me that children don't need perfect parents, they need present parents. They need adults who will listen to their questions, support their dreams, and love them unconditionally, regardless of what anyone else thinks about your family's circumstances. My voice grew stronger as I continued. This award isn't really about me. It's about recognizing that families come in all shapes and sizes, and that love and commitment matter more than conforming to traditional expectations. It's about understanding that being a single parent doesn't make you incomplete, it makes you incredibly strong. I looked at Jennifer, knowing she would understand the deeper meaning of my words. To the other single parents in this room, and to those listening who might be facing similar challenges, you are enough. Your love is enough. Your dedication is enough. Don't let anyone convince you otherwise. The applause when I finished was thunderous, but all I could focus on was Lily, who had tears streaming down her face and was clapping so hard her hands must have hurt. As I walked back to our table, people stood and shook my hand, offering congratulations and thanks. Several parents stopped me to share their own stories of single parenthood, of feeling judged or inadequate, of finding strength they didn't know they possessed. "That was beautiful," Jennifer whispered as I sat down, her own eyes bright with tears. "I'm so sorry it took me this long to understand." Tom Morrison appeared at our table as the evening wound down. "Marcus, that speech was exactly what this industry needed to hear. We have a lot of young fathers in construction who struggle with work-life balance, who think they have to choose between career success and being present for their families. You've proven that's a false choice." As we gathered our coats and prepared to leave, Lily slipped her hand into mine. "Daddy, I'm proud of you. I'm proud of you too, sweetheart." "For what?" "For being patient with me while I learned how to be your dad. For being such a kind, smart, amazing person. For showing me every day that we make a pretty great team." The drive home was quieter, the kids tired from the excitement but content. Tyler and Emma chattered softly about the fancy dinner and the important speeches, while Lily sat quietly, still holding the crystal award we'd been given. "Uncle Marcus," Tyler said sleepily from the back seat, "when I grow up, I want to be the kind of dad you are." "What kind is that?" I asked, glancing at him in the rearview mirror. "The kind who shows up." Those simple words hit me harder than all the formal recognition and applause of the evening. A 10-year-old boy, whose own father had chosen to walk away, had identified the most important quality a parent could possess: the willingness to show up, consistently, and unconditionally. At home, as we got the kids ready for bed, I realized something profound had shifted. For 3 years I'd been defending our family structure, proving our worth, justifying our choices to skeptics and critics. Tonight, for the first time, I felt like we'd moved beyond defense into celebration. We weren't a family in spite of being unconventional. We were a strong, loving, successful family that happened to look different from the traditional model. And that difference wasn't a limitation to overcome. It was a strength to embrace. As I tucked Lily into bed, she looked up at me with serious eyes. "Daddy, do you think other kids will want families like ours now?" "What do you mean?" "I mean, do you think kids with moms and dads will see how happy we are and want their families to be like ours too?" I smiled at her perspective, a idea that our family had become something to aspire to rather than something to pity. "I think all families are different, sweetheart. The important thing is that people in families love each other and take care of each other." Tonight was about celebrating all the different ways that can happen. "I like our way," she said definitively, settling into her pillow. "Me too, princess, me too." Later that night, I sat in my living room holding the Crystal Award, reflecting on the evening and the journey that had brought us here. 3 years ago, I'd been a newly single father, terrified of failing my daughter. Tonight, I'd been honored for succeeding beyond my wildest expectations, but the real award wasn't the crystal trophy or the recognition from my industry peers. The real award was Lily's confidence, her happiness, her unshakable belief that our family was exactly what it should be. The real award was Tyler's sleepy declaration that he wanted to be the kind of father who shows up. The real award was Jennifer's understanding and apology, her recognition that love and commitment mattered more than traditional structures. We'd not only survived the transition to single parenthood, we'd thrived, and maybe, just maybe, we'd helped other people understand that families defined by love were just as valid and valuable as families defined by convention. The letter appeared on my dresser 3 days after the awards ceremony, written in Jennifer's careful handwriting on cream-colored stationery that I recognized from her old Life the Life when she had time for elegant correspondence and matching desk accessories. I found it when I came home from work, and something about the formal presentation told me this wasn't a casual note. I sat on the edge of my bed to read it, still wearing my work clothes, the sounds of children's laughter drifting up from the kitchen where Jennifer was helping with homework. Marcus. I've started this letter a dozen times over the past few weeks, and every version felt inadequate. How do you apologize for questioning something as fundamental as someone's ability to parent their own child? How do you admit that your criticism came from ignorance and fear rather than genuine concern? Watching you accept that award on Friday night, listening to your speech about showing up and being present, I realized that you've been teaching me about parenthood since the day I moved into your house. Not through lectures or advice, but through your daily actions, your quiet competence, your unwavering commitment to putting your children's needs first. I paused, surprised by her use of the word children, plural. In the 6 weeks since Jennifer and her kids had moved in, I'd begun thinking of Tyler and Emma as my responsibility too. But I hadn't realized she'd noticed. You never made me feel like a burden during the worst time of my life. You opened your home, rearranged your carefully organized routine, and somehow made space for 3 additional people without a single complaint. You helped Tyler with his science project with the same patience you show Lily. You comforted Emma during her nightmares with the same gentle confidence. You've been a father figure to my children while I learned how to be their primary parent, but more than that, you've shown me what I was missing in my own marriage. I spent 12 years with Brad, and I never saw him engage with Tyler and Emma the way you do. He was present physically, but emotionally. He was checked out most of the time, distracted by work, or his phone, or his own concerns. I thought that was normal. I thought that was what fatherhood looked like. The honesty in her words was startling. Jennifer had always presented her marriage as the gold standard, the model of family success that the rest of us should aspire to. Learning that it had been hollow behind the perfect facade explained so much about her previous judgment. I criticized your parenting because I couldn't imagine succeeding at something that felt impossible to me. When I said Lily needed female guidance and questioned whether you could provide everything she needed, I was really expressing my own terror about single parenthood. I was projecting my fears onto your situation because I couldn't believe that anyone could thrive in circumstances that seem so overwhelming. But Lily is thriving. She's confident, articulate, kind, and secure. She has an incredibly close relationship with you that's built on mutual respect and genuine affection. She's not missing anything, she's gaining something precious that many children in traditional families never experience. A parent who is fully, completely present. I thought about Lily's reaction to the award ceremony, her pride in our family, her matter-of-fact acceptance of our unconventional structure. She'd never seen our situation as lacking because I'd never treated it as a compromise. I need you to know that I was wrong about everything. Wrong about Lily's needs, wrong about your capabilities, wrong about what makes a family successful. You're not just a good single father, you're an exceptional parent, period. The fact that you're doing it alone doesn't diminish your success. It amplifies it. I also need you to know how grateful I am for your patience with me during this transition. You could have reminded me of my previous criticism, could have pointed out the irony of my situation, could have made me feel small for my past judgment. Instead, you've treated me with kindness and support, helping me learn the skills I should have developed years ago. Tyler asked me yesterday if you were going to be his dad now. I explained that he has a father, but that you're something equally important, a man who shows him what it means to be present, responsible, and caring. Emma told her teacher that she has the best uncle in the world who helps with homework and fixes things that are broken. They feel safe with you, valued by you, loved by you. I've learned more about parenting in 6 weeks of watching you than I did in 10 years of marriage. I've learned that being present is more important than being perfect. That consistency matters more than grand gestures. That children need attention more than they need things. The letter continued for another page, detailing specific moments when Jennifer had observed my interactions with the children, instances where she'd recognized skills she was still developing. Her honesty was both humbling and validating. I'm writing this letter not just to apologize, but to thank you. Thank you for showing me that single parenthood isn't a failure, it's often a success story. Thank you for proving that love and commitment matter more than traditional structures. Thank you for being patient with my learning curve and for never making me feel inadequate during my most vulnerable moments. I hope someday I can be half the parent you are. I hope I can give Tyler and Emma the same sense of security and confidence that you've given Lily. I hope I can learn to be as present, as patient, as consistently loving as you are every single day. Your sister, Jennifer P.S.'s mom called this morning. She wanted me to tell you that she's proud of you, and that Dad would be too. She said she should have said that years ago, and she's sorry it took her so long to recognize what was right in front of her. I read the letter twice before folding it carefully and placing it in my bedside drawer. The apology was more thorough and thoughtful than I'd expected, but it was the postscript that affected me most. My mother's recognition, delivered through Jennifer, felt like the final piece of validation I hadn't realized I was still seeking. That evening, after the kids were in bed, Jennifer and I sat on the back porch with our usual post-dinner coffee. The early December air was crisp, and we'd both bundled up in jackets. But neither of us wanted to go inside and end the rare moment of adult conversation. I found your letter, I said simply. I wasn't sure how to give it to you. Some things are easier to write than to say. Thank you for writing it. It means more than you probably realize. Jennifer was quiet for a moment, staring out at the city lights twinkling in the distance. Marcus, can I ask you something? Do you ever regret it? Taking on full custody, building your life around Lily's needs? Never, I answered without hesitation. Not even during the hardest moments. She's the best thing that ever happened to me. Even when people questioned your choices. Even when I questioned your choices. Especially then. Every time someone doubted what we were building together, it just made me more determined to prove them wrong. Jennifer smiled sadly. You didn't just prove us wrong, you proved that we were asking the wrong questions entirely. We were worried about what Lily might be missing instead of celebrating what she was gaining. She gained a father who's completely invested in her success and happiness. That's not nothing, it's everything, Jennifer said quietly. And I'm sorry it took me this long to understand that. As we sat together in comfortable silence, I reflected on how much had changed since that first PTA meeting where I'd felt so out of place, so judged, so inadequate. The whispers and doubts that had once felt so threatening now seemed insignificant compared to the solid evidence of our success. My daughter was thriving, my career was advancing, my family both traditional and chosen finally understood and supported what we'd built together. And perhaps most importantly, I'd learned to trust my own instincts as a parent, to value my own definition of success over society's expectations. The little girl upstairs sleeping peacefully in her room was happy, confident, and secure, knew she was loved unconditionally, that her needs would always be prioritized, that her father would always show up. In the end, that was the only validation that truly mattered. The phone call from the Denver Post came on a Wednesday morning while I was reviewing safety protocols at the Henderson Medical Complex site. The construction trailer was its usual controlled chaos blueprints, spread across tables, coffee cups, multiplying like rabbits, and the constant hum of productivity that came with a project running ahead of schedule. Mr. Thompson, this is Sarah Martinez from the Denver Post. I'm calling about your Father of the Year award. We'd like to do a feature story on single fathers in the construction industry. I stepped outside the trailer, away from the noise of power tools and shouted conversations. I'm not sure I understand. It was just an industry award actually. It's become something bigger than that. The Denver Construction Association posted about your speech on their social media, and it's been shared thousands of times. Parents are responding to your message about families coming in different forms, but being equally valid. The idea of media attention made me uncomfortable. Our success felt private, personal, not something to be examined by strangers or turned into a public narrative. I appreciate the interest, but I'm not looking for publicity. Mr. Thompson, I understand your hesitation, but there are a lot of single parents in this city who could benefit from hearing your story. Would you at least consider it? That evening I mentioned the call to Lily while we worked together on her homework at the kitchen table. She was practicing multiplication tables while I reviewed project timelines, our usual parallel productivity session. A newspaper wants to write about us, she asked, looking up from her math worksheets. About the award, and about single-parent families. They think our story might help other people. What kind of help? I thought about how to explain it in terms an 8-year-old would understand. Remember when Aunt Jennifer first moved in with us? She was scared about being a single mom because she didn't know anyone else who'd done it successfully. Maybe if other parents read about our family, they won't feel so scared or alone. Lily considered this seriously, like when I was nervous about the science fair, but then I felt better after talking to kids who'd done it before. Exactly like that. Then I think we should do it. But only if they promise to spell my name right and use a good picture. I laughed at her priorities. Those are very reasonable conditions. The interview took place the following Saturday in our living room. Sarah Martinez turned out to be a woman in her 30s with kind eyes and a genuine interest in our story. She spent an hour asking thoughtful questions about the challenges of single parenthood, the rewards of being fully present for your child, and the way our family had evolved over the past 3 years. What do you want other single parents to know? She asked toward the end of our conversation. That you're not broken, I said without hesitation. That your family isn't incomplete or damaged. You're doing one of the hardest jobs in the world, and the fact that you're doing it alone doesn't make you less capable. It makes you incredibly strong. Lily, who had been quietly drawing at the kitchen table during most of the interview, appeared beside my chair. Can I say something? she asked politely. Of course, Sarah said, turning her recorder toward Lily. I want other kids to know that having one parent doesn't make you sad or different in a bad way. My daddy is really good at taking care of me, and we have fun together, and I don't feel like I'm missing anything important. Sarah smiled. What's your favorite thing about your family? That my daddy always listens to me. When I have problems or questions or just want to tell him about my day, he stops what he's doing and pays attention, and he never makes me feel like my questions are stupid, even when I ask him the same thing a bunch of times. The photographer arrived as we were finishing the interview, a cheerful woman who spent 20 minutes capturing candid shots of us reading together, working on homework, and just talking in our living room. The images felt natural and unposed, which was exactly what I'd hoped for. The article appeared in the Sunday edition 3 weeks later, with the headline Breaking Stereotypes. Single dad proves love makes a family. The photograph they'd chosen showed Lily and me sitting together on our couch, both of us laughing at something she'd written in her notebook. We looked happy, comfortable, complete. The response was immediate and overwhelming. My phone started ringing Sunday evening, and didn't stop for 3 days. The Denver Construction Association forwarded dozens of emails from parents, thanking me for speaking openly about single parenthood. Tom Morrison fielded interview requests from 3 local television stations and a regional parenting magazine. Marcus, you've become something of a celebrity, he said, poking his head into my site trailer Wednesday morning. Channel 7 wants to do a follow-up story about work-life balance in construction, but the most meaningful responses came from other single parents. Rebecca called Sunday night, laughing and crying at the same time. I just read the article, she said. I'm so proud of you for putting yourselves out there like that. Do you know how many single parents in this city have been waiting for someone to say exactly what you said? What do you mean? That we're not damaged goods? That our kids aren't missing out? That love and commitment matter more than traditional structures? Her voice grew more serious. Marcus, I've gotten 5 phone calls today from other single moms who saw the article and want to connect. You've given people permission to be proud of their families instead of apologetic about them. The television interviews that followed were shorter and more focused, but they reached an even wider audience. Lily insisted on participating in one of them, confidently explaining to the camera why she loved being part of a single-parent family. My daddy and I are a team, she said matter-of-factly. We make decisions together, we take care of each other, and we always have time for important conversations. Some families have lots of people, and some families have just a few people, but what matters is that everyone loves each other. The segment aired during the evening news, and my phone immediately started buzzing with text messages from friends, colleagues, and family members. Mom called within minutes of the broadcast ending. I just watched the news, she said, her voice thick with emotion. I am so proud of both of you. Your father would have been amazed by the man you've become, by the father you are. But the message that affected me most came from an unexpected source. A brief email from Sarah, Lily's mother, whom I hadn't heard from in over a year. Marcus, I saw the newspaper article and the TV interview. I wanted you to know that I'm proud of what you've accomplished with Lily. She's clearly thriving under your care, and you've become the kind of parent I always hoped you'd be. Thank you for giving her the stability and love she deserves. Reading those words, I realized that the media attention had accomplished something I hadn't expected. It had provided closure, validation not just from strangers but from the people whose opinions had once mattered most to me. Daddy, Lily said that evening, as we were getting ready for bed, are you glad we did the interviews? Yes, I think so. Are you? I liked telling people about our family, and I liked that other kids might feel better about their families too. She paused, considering her words carefully. But I'm also glad it's over. I like it when it's just us again. Me too, Princess. Our regular life is pretty great, isn't it? The best, she agreed, settling into her pillow with a contented sigh. As I turned off her light, I reflected on the whirlwind of attention our simple family story had generated. The interviews and articles had been validating, but they'd also confirmed something I'd known all along. The real measure of our success wasn't public recognition or media coverage. It was the quiet confidence of a well-loved child, the steady rhythm of our daily routines, the unshakable bond we'd built together over 3 years of showing up for each other, day after day, no matter what anyone else thought. The family portrait session took place 6 months after the media attention had died down. On a crisp Saturday morning in Washington Park, Jennifer had insisted we commemorate this chapter of our lives with professional photos, not for publicity or recognition, but for ourselves, for the future, for the family album that would someday show Lily, Tyler, and Emma how we'd all grown together during this transformative year. Uncle Marcus, can you help me with my tie? Tyler called from the bathroom, struggling with the silk necktie Jennifer had bought specifically for the photo session. At 10 years old, he was developing the kind of awkward dignity that came with trying to be grown up while still being decidedly a child. Of course, buddy. I found him standing on a step stool, staring at his reflection with the serious concentration of someone attempting an important adult skill. Here, let me show you a trick my dad taught me. As I adjusted his tie, I caught our reflection in the bathroom mirror, this boy who wasn't my son but who'd started calling me his role model. And me, the man who'd somehow become a father figure to 3 children instead of just one. The role felt natural now, earned through months of homework, help, bedtime stories, and those crucial moments when children needed an adult to simply be present. "There," I said, stepping back to admire the perfectly knotted tie. "Very professional." "Do I look like I could work construction someday?" Tyler asked hopefully. "You look like you could do anything you set your mind to." Downstairs, the scene was organized chaos. Lily was helping Emma with her hair bow, while Jennifer applied minimal makeup and tried to coordinate everyone's outfits. The photographer, a patient woman named Carol who specialized in family portraits, was setting up equipment and chatting easily with the children about their interests. "This is unusual," Carol said to me as we watched the kids interact. "Most families I photograph have some tension during these sessions, but your children seem genuinely excited to be here together." "They've been through a lot of changes this year," I replied. "I think they've learned to appreciate family time, however it's configured." Jennifer appeared beside me, straightening my collar with the automatic gesture of someone who'd spent months living in close quarters. Our relationship had evolved into something neither of us had expected, not quite siblings in the traditional sense, but partners in the complex task of raising 3 children with patience, humor, and shared responsibility. "You clean up well," she said with a smile. "Are you ready for this? Are any of us ready for this?" The photo session became a celebration of how far we'd all come. Carol captured candid moments that told our story better than any posed portrait could. Lily teaching Emma how to make silly faces, Tyler and me examining a construction crane visible in the distance, Jennifer and me laughing while trying to coordinate 3 children for a group shot. "Now I want some photos of just Marcus and Lily," Carol said after we'd gotten several family shots. "This is where it all started, right?" As Lily and I sat together on a park bench, her small hand in mine, I thought about how much had changed. Since those early days when it was just the 2 of us figuring out single parenthood, we were still a team, still best friends, still committed to showing up for each other no matter what. But our team had expanded to include Tyler and Emma, and our definition of family had grown to encompass Jennifer's journey toward independence and strength. "Daddy," Lily said quietly while Carol adjusted her camera settings, "I want to tell you something." "What's that, Princess?" "I'm proud that our family helped Aunt Jennifer and Tyler and Emma, and I'm proud that other people learned about single parents because of us, but mostly I'm proud that you're my dad." The simplicity of her statement, the matter-of-fact way she'd summarized our entire journey, made my eyes water. "I'm proud to be your dad too, sweetheart, every single day." Carol captured that moment, the 2 of us looking at each other with complete understanding and affection, the foundation that had supported everything else we'd built together. After the individual shots, we gathered for the final family portrait. Jennifer stood beside me with Emma in front of her, while Tyler positioned himself next to me, with Lily completing our circle. We looked like what we were, a non-traditional family that had found its way to happiness through cooperation, patience, and love. "Perfect," Carol said, reviewing the images on her camera. "You can see the genuine affection between all of you. These are going to be beautiful." As we walked back to our cars, Tyler slipped his hand into Mina, gesture that had become natural over the months of living together, but which still surprised me with its trust and affection. "Uncle Marcus, when we move into our own house next month, will we still see you all the time?" Jennifer had finally found a townhouse that fit her budget and their needs, marking the next phase of her independence. The transition would be bittersweet for all of us. We'd grown accustomed to the daily rhythm of shared meals, homework, supervision, and collaborative parenting. Every week, I promised. Sunday dinners, project help, homework emergencies. "Family now, Tyler. That doesn't change just because you don't live in our guest room anymore." "Good," Emma chimed in, skipping beside us. "Because I like having 2 grown-ups who help with math problems." That evening, after Jennifer and the kids had gone to bed, Lily and I sat together in the living room reviewing homework and discussing the date. These quiet moments of connection had become even more precious as our household had grown, and I'd learned to protect them fiercely. "Daddy, what's going to happen when Tyler and Emma move out?" "What do you mean? Will you miss them? Will it feel weird to just have our regular family again?" I considered her question carefully. "I'll definitely miss having them around every day. But I'm also excited to have more one-on-one time with you again. We've shared you pretty well this year, haven't we?" "I liked sharing you," she said thoughtfully. "It made me feel good that Tyler and Emma felt safe with you, that they trusted you like I do." "You know what I learned this year?" I asked. "What? That love multiplies instead of dividing. Having Tyler and Emma here didn't make me love you any less. It just made our capacity for love bigger." Lily nodded as if this made perfect sense to her 8-year-old understanding of the world. Like how a flashlight doesn't get dimmer when you point it at more things, it just lights up more space. Her analogy was so apt, so insightful, that I had to hug her immediately. "Exactly like that, Princess, exactly like that." As I tucked her into bed that night, I reflected on the year we'd just lived through. We'd started as a successful single family, proving our worth to skeptical observers. We'd become a temporary extended family, providing support during a crisis. We'd evolved into a redefined family unit that transcended traditional boundaries, while maintaining our individual relationships and identities. The photo session had captured more than just images. Set had documented our growth, our resilience, our ability to adapt and thrive regardless of circumstances. When Lily looked at these pictures years from now, she'd see evidence of a family that chose love over convention, that valued presence over perfection, that understood family as something you create rather than something you inherit. Most importantly, she'd see herself at the center of it, all confident, beloved, secure in the knowledge that she'd always been enough, exactly as she was, in whatever family structure surrounded her. The school assignment that changed everything was simple enough. Write about your hero, and explain why they inspire you. Mrs. Patterson had given her third-grade class 2 weeks to complete the project, and most children had chosen predictable subjects: firefighters, teachers, athletes, or fictional characters from their favorite books. Lily worked on her essay for 3 evenings, sitting at our kitchen table with the same focused concentration she brought to math problems and science projects. I'd offered to help, but she'd politely declined, explaining that this was something she needed to write herself. "It's personal, Daddy," she'd said with the seriousness that sometimes surprised me in my 9-year-old daughter. "I want the words to be exactly right." On the night before it was due, she asked me to read her final draft. I settled beside her on the couch, expecting a sweet but simple essay about why she admired me. What I found was something far more profound, a piece of writing that demonstrated not just her growth as a student, but her understanding of our journey together. * My Hero Dad by Lily Thompson. My hero is my dad, Marcus Thompson. He's not famous, like people on TV, and he doesn't have superpowers like in comic books, but he's the strongest person I know. When I was 6, my mom left us. I didn't understand why she didn't want to live with us anymore, and I was scared about what would happen. To me, some people said that dads can't take care of girls by themselves, that I would need a mom to teach me important things. But my dad proved that love is more important than what other people think families should look like. My dad learned how to braid my hair by watching YouTube videos. He practiced on my doll first so he wouldn't hurt me. He learned how to paint my nails and helped me pick out clothes and talk to me about feelings. He never acted like these things were too hard or too girly for him to understand. He just learned them because I needed him to. But the most important thing my dad taught me is that being different doesn't mean being wrong. Our family looks different from families with a mom and a dad, but we're just as good. We take care of each other, we solve problems together, and we love each other no matter what. My dad goes to every school event, even when he has to leave work early. He helps me with homework, even when he's tired from building buildings all day. He listens to my problems, even when they seem small to grown-ups. He never makes me feel like I'm bothering him or asking too many questions. This year, my dad won an award called Father of the Year. People gave him a trophy and put our picture in the newspaper. But I already knew he was the best dad before anyone else figured it out. I knew because he shows up for me every single day, and because he taught me that families are made of love, not rules. My dad is my hero because he's brave enough to be different, strong enough to do hard things alone, and loving enough to put me first always. He proved that one parent can be enough if that parent really loves their child. When I grow up, I want to be like my dad. I want to be brave when people doubt me, strong when things are difficult, and loving even when love is complicated. I want to show up for the people I care about the way he shows up for me. My dad says I can be anything I want when I grow up, but what I want most is to make him as proud of me as I am of him every single day. The end. I read the essay twice before I could trust my voice to respond. The depth of understanding in her words, the maturity of her perspective, the clarity with which she'd captured our entire journey, took my breath away. "Lily," I said finally, "this is extraordinary. You've written something really special. Here, do you think Mrs. Patterson will like it?" "I think Mrs. Patterson will be amazed by it. But more importantly, I think you should be proud of yourself for writing something so honest and thoughtful." She beamed at the praise, then settled against my side with the comfortable familiarity of our evening routine. "Daddy, do you ever think about what would have happened if Mom had stayed?" The question caught me off guard. We'd talked about Sarah occasionally over the years, but Lily rarely speculated about alternative histories. "Sometimes," I said carefully. "Why do you ask?" "I was thinking about it while I wrote my essay, and I realized that if Mom had stayed, maybe you wouldn't have learned how to braid hair, or paint nails, or talk about feelings. Maybe you would have been a different kind of dad." "You might be right about that. I think I like the dad you became better than the dad you might have been." Her simple statement encapsulated something profound about our journey. The challenges that had forced me to grow, to stretch beyond traditional masculine roles, to become fully present in ways I might never have discovered in a conventional family structure. Those challenges had created something better, not worse. "I like the dad I became too," I said, kissing the top of her head. "And I like the daughter you've become: strong, thoughtful, brave, and kind." The next week, Mrs. Patterson called to tell me that Lily's essay had been selected to represent their class in the school's writing competition. A month later, it won first place in the elementary division. But more meaningful than any award was the conversation I had with Mrs. Patterson during the parent-teacher conference that followed. "Mr. Thompson," she said, "I've been teaching for 22 years, and I've never read a student essay that demonstrated such emotional intelligence and maturity. Lily has a remarkable understanding of complex family dynamics and personal growth. She's always been perceptive. It's more than that. She has the kind of emotional vocabulary and self-awareness that usually takes decades to develop. That doesn't happen by accident." Mrs. Patterson leaned forward, her expression serious. "Can I tell you something? When Lily first joined my class 3 years ago, after her mother left, I was concerned. I'd seen children from broken homes struggle academically and socially. I wondered if she would need extra support, special accommodations, and now I use her as an example when I talk to other teachers about resilience. She's confident, without being arrogant, independent, without being isolated, empathetic, without being naive. She's one of the most well-adjusted children I've ever taught." As I drove home from that conference, I reflected on how far we'd come from those early days when every conversation with school personnel felt like a judgment on my adequacy as a single parent. Mrs. Patterson's words weren't just praise for Lily, they were validation of the choices I'd made, the priorities I'd set, the kind of father I'd chosen to become. That evening, I found Lily in her room, working on a new writing project, this one voluntary, born from her growing love of storytelling. "What are you writing now?" I asked, settling beside her on the bed. "A story about a girl who builds a bridge," she said, showing me her notebook filled with careful handwriting and detailed drawings. "She's an engineer, like you, but she builds bridges to connect people instead of buildings." "That sounds like a great story." "It is, and Daddy." "Yes, thank you for being the kind of dad who listens to stories and helps with projects and always makes time for important conversations. Thank you for being the kind of daughter who writes beautiful essays and builds creative bridges and reminds me every day why I wanted to be your father." As I tucked her in that night, I realized that our story had come full circle. We'd started as a father desperate to prove his worth and a daughter adjusting to an unexpected family structure. We'd faced doubt, criticism, and countless challenges. We'd grown stronger, more confident, more secure in our bond. But most importantly, we'd discovered that the very thing that made us different, our unconventional family structure, had become our greatest strength. The intense bond forged by necessity had created something precious. A relationship built on complete trust, open communication, and unwavering commitment. Lily had written that she wanted to make me as proud of her as she was of me. What she didn't fully understand yet was that she'd been accomplishing that goal every single day for 3 years. Every time she faced a challenge with confidence, showed kindness to others, pursued her curiosity, or expressed herself with honesty and intelligence, she proved that our family hadn't just survived, it had created something extraordinary. As I turned off her light and headed to my own room, I carried with me the knowledge that we'd not only answered the question of whether a single dad could raise a daughter, we'd redefined what success in parenting looked like. We'd shown that love, presence, and commitment mattered more than traditional structures. We'd proven that families defined by choice and dedication were just as valid, just as strong, just as capable of producing confident, happy, well-adjusted children. The whispers had stopped long ago, replaced by respect and admiration, but even if they hadn't, it wouldn't have mattered. The only validation I needed was sleeping peacefully down the hall, a remarkable young girl who knew without question that she was loved, valued, and exactly where she belonged. They'd said a single dad couldn't raise a daughter. Then my boss called me Father of the Year. But the real award, the one that mattered most, was the trust and love of the exceptional young woman I had the privilege of calling my daughter, and that was something no one could ever take away from us.